So what can also be interesting in it is we can then take that DLI value, we can look at the par readings. For example, we have a cyphastria in one of our tanks over there, and it's on an old baby food jar, and in one direction it's growing and it's spreading out a lot, and in the other direction it's growing and it's spreading, but it's not grown as far. And on the side, the one side is under halides, the one side is predominantly under LEDs, and on the LED side, it hasn't grown as far, but it's grown much thicker, and the color is much better, but the DLI value is much lower. On the metal halide side, it's actually grown much farther, but the color is not nice at all in comparison. So you've got a situation where you have two different par readings, and on one side, it is better colored, and it's thicker skeleton, and it's more robust, and on the other side, it's much thinner, but much more spread out. So that is something else we could be able to take away from the DLI, is a growth versus coloration mode, where you want to color up your corals really well, this is the mode, this is the amount of DLI you want to give it. You want them to grow the fastest, these are some settings you can put it at to make them grow a little bit faster. So in the original Coral Labs test, we showed two different birds' nests. One was grown under metal halides, one of them was grown under the LEDs. These are a couple of the pieces that we had growing under the metal halides now. They've actually grown together, and they've fused themselves back together. So I'm not going to break them apart, but you can see that's two pieces there. And this is the piece that we've kept under the radions for the same time frame. So under the radions, we've actually experienced significantly better growth. That being said, one of the things we did find, we started looking back on our notes and going, wait a minute, this isn't making a lot of sense. Like, we used to grow our birds' nests. This is the birds of paradise. We used to grow this under halides, and we had much better growth, and we had much better coloration. What's the difference here? And when we look back and we started looking at our notes, we also found that under our 250 watt halides, we were running them at 12 hours a day. And when we did the original Coral Labs test, we were running the 250 watt halides for about 8 hours a day, and we were running the radions for 8 hours a day. And we saw a massive growth difference. Now, when we then took our halides and increased their duration up to 12 hours, we then saw the bird's nest really starting to explode, really starting to grow a lot quicker. Not necessarily than under the radions, but than what we'd been experiencing under 8 hours of metal halides. So that was, I think, part of the limiting factor, is that with the 8 hours under the metal halides, we weren't seeing the same growth that we used to, because we used to run them for 12 hours. But now, as a comparison in terms of power consumption, what we're really looking at is 12 hours of metal halides to compare them to 8 hours running under LEDs. And that's a very different comparison. And that's another comparison we might follow up with in the future.